Hey everybody, Saturday, and I want to tell you a story. This is a story about me. So when I was 13, I think 14 years old, I grew up in Spokane, Washington, in the Spokane Valley. And I had a bunch of neighborhood girlfriends that were like sisters to me growing up. And if any of them are watching this video, they're going to be able to verify this story. We all had 10-speed bikes, and back then you could ride around on your 10-speed bikes all day. If it was a Saturday, you could get up in the morning, hop on your bike, take off, and be gone until the street lights came home on, and then you had to go home, be home for dinner. So we did this a lot. We rode bikes after school. We rode everywhere, and the way you could tell where we were at was you would drive by the house, and all the 10-speed bikes would be laying in the front yard. So this one day, we were at Susie Simon's house. Susie Simon was my best friend, and she's gone now. She tragic loss. She killed herself when we were right after we graduated from high school. But anyway, we were at Susie's house, and none of us drank. I didn't drink. No drugs. We're just good, wonderful girls in Spokane, Washington. And we were at Susie's house, and I was sitting on the front porch. I'd come outside for some reason, probably was isolating or something, and they were all inside Susie's living room, and they were talking, and just the screen door was open behind me, and I was sitting there, and I could kind of hear them, but I couldn't really hear them. And I was sitting on the porch, and I guess I was kind of bored, and all of a sudden, I realized they were talking about me. Oh my God, they're talking about me. Right? I couldn't quite hear, but I knew they were talking about me. And all of a sudden I felt lonely, and I felt left out, and I felt betrayed, and I was terrible. And I got up and I jumped on my 10-speed bike, and I pedaled all the way home. And I got home, and I pulled into the driveway and threw my bike on the ground and ran in the house. Slam went the screen door behind me. Ran into my room, dove into my bed, and started crying. Crying. Big crocodile tears crying. My mother came in. She happened to be home. She wasn't working that day, and she came in and said, "Cookie, what is wrong with you? What is going on? What happened? Did you hurt yourself? Did you crash on your bike?" "No, I was at Susie's, and they all hate me, and they were talking about me." And I was crying. Ding dong. The doorbell, and my mom went to the door, and it was all my girlfriends. It was Marcy and Kathleen and Julie and Susie, and I think it might have been a couple other people, and they were all at the door, and they said, "Mrs. Roberts, what happened? Why Karen took off on the bike, and we couldn't catch her. We heard her take off, and she was crying, and is she okay? What happened?" And my mom said, "Well, she thought you were you guys talking about her?" And they said, "No, we weren't talking about her. We were talking about what we were going to do. We were going to see if Julie's mom would let us all spend the night at her house, right? We were talking about a summer party, like what we were going to do. We were all just laying around on the sofa eating Doritos, and Karen was outside, and all of a sudden she was gone, and we heard her crying." That right there was the first sign. That was the first experience I had with something fancied or real, like they talk in the big book. I made that all up in my head. That was a sign of alcoholism right there, right? Everything was fine, and I made up shit. I imagined the whole scenario. I guess I was bored, and I wanted some attention, and that is the kind of thing, and I was not drinking and using at the time, but I'll tell you what, that was a sign of my alcoholism for sure. I mean, I always felt different. I always felt left out. I felt like the odd man out. And so when I finally had a drink in Casey Jackson's basement, hi Casey, we're friends too, and it wasn't Casey's fault. How did he know that of all the people at his party, I was going to be the raving alcoholic, right? Later in life. Who knows? You never know. But when I drank that night, I didn't feel like anyone was talking about me. I didn't care if anyone was talking about it. I didn't care if anybody liked me. I was right with the world. But I'll tell you what, I learned a lot. I thought about that story this morning about me riding home on my bike, making up that whole thing, how I ruined my day and everybody else's day. I made a bunch of drama. I totally believed it. I believed it. It was real in my mind, and it was all bullshit. And I do that today. I make shit up. That's what I do. My mind races off and goes on a tangent. And fancied or real, I am going to get upset. I am going to get a resentment. I am going to scare myself to death. You know, I do that a lot. I get sick. I'll get like a headache, and all of a sudden, I've got a brain tumor. Now, when I was drinking and using, I didn't do that. If I got a pain in my head, it was time for a drink. But now, all of a sudden, and God forbid you're an alcoholic and you don't feel good. And do not get on WebMD. Don't do it. You get on WebMD and all of a sudden you've diagnosed yourself with all this shit and you're going to die. You know what I mean? You are dying. That's alcoholism. That kind of thinking is alcoholism. There is nothing in that whole scenario of stories that I just told you that said I was drinking. The drinking was my answer to the problem. Does that not explain to you? That's alcoholism. There are times when I have been at events where there are children running around and I can see the one kid that's going to be an alcoholic. You can see it plain as day, right? The characteristics are there. The selfishness, the self-centeredness, the oversensitivity, oh my God, it's crazy. That's me. And that is why I drink and use. I often say in AA that people are either trying to get into AA, right? They're trying to get sober and get an answer. And as soon as they get an answer, they're trying to get the fuck out of there. And they will get resentment. They're looking for a resentment. They're looking for someone to piss them off, right? In the old days, there used to be this Charles Bronson commercial with an ever-ready battery on his shoulder. And he'd say, come on, I dare ya. Knock that off, right? Knock it off my shoulder. That's what it's like being an alcoholic. I am looking for a reason to get pissed off. I am looking for a reason for my feelings to get hurt. I am looking for a reason to be the victim today. I am looking for a reason all the time because I'm selfish and self-centered and all I want to do is think about myself. My little plans and ideas, how I'm not getting what I want, how you're trying to take what I've already got, how I should have gotten what you have. I mean, it's just crazy. It's just, and it's exhausting. I'm sure exhausted just listening to me. But that is alcoholism. That irritable, restless, discontent feeling. If you're wondering what is wrong with you and you think it's depression, so you drink, but you drink because you're depressed, but you're depressed because you drink, that's alcoholism, okay? That's a little different than just regular depression. So if you can relate to any of that story, you might have some kind of a addiction problem. Or maybe it'll help you understand someone else. This world that I live in is just, I feel sorry for the people around me. I really put pressure on people. I want everyone to understand me. And I found through Alcoholics Anonymous and getting sober that it is not my job to be understood. It's my job to understand. I have to be the one that understands. I have to make it harder on myself and easier on others because my mind shit up. And nobody should have to be expected to make me happy. It's a tall order in here. It's a crazy place to live in my head. And I'm glad I have an answer. I'm glad I have a spiritual answer. I have this program of recovery that helps me make it through the day and try to be useful to people. Otherwise, I'm not useful at all. So I'm glad I have an answer. I would like to help you find an answer. That's my goal. I don't want you to feel alone. If you're and you need help, I want you to tell someone you need help. You can tell me. You can tell a safe person, a loved one, maybe at work, an HR person that can direct you to some help. So there is help, okay? And you're not alone. And I love you, and happy Saturday. Thanks for listening to my story. Bye.